Hello everybody, and welcome back to Neo. So today we don't have a video for you. Instead, we're gonna have Teo read a lot of shit. Now you're probably wondering, wait, Pedro, why aren't you doing what you did like the last time, where you're just going to record yourself reading through all these things while Teo reads? Well, there's a reason for that. Basically, in the vanilla version of the game, the English translation, I don't know how the other translations are, but probably they have similar. I don't think there's probably not much difference. But basically, the problem is, in order to fit the translation of the secret reports into the limited amount of space that unfortunately, like the first game, there's not this gigantic white boxes like it was. Unfortunately, there's a lot less space for text this time. As a result, Matt and his team had to basically try their best to squeeze all the info and try to include. As a result, a lot of sentences were not necessarily shorted, and sometimes some details had to get left behind because there was nothing to do. They had to fit all the text in the space that they could. In fact, if you take a look at the Google spreadsheet link that's in the description, they even talk about how the idea behind this retranslation of the reports that fans made was to, quote unquote, maintain the English translation where appropriate, to be accurate to the Japanese text, to be consistent both internally in word choices with the OG TWERI reports. All right, with that behind the scenes out of the way, what we have to read, everybody, is the actual retranslated reports, so we can get as much cool details from the lore as possible. So, for this particular game, we have a shit ton of reports. In fact, we have a total of 24 reports. So, and all those reports have like 7 pages each or something. So all right, get comfortable. Well, it's like last time, Dubs. Okay, Teo, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. H, what have you been doing?
Let's start with the number 1. Almost 3 years have passed since the Shibuya game ended, catching the attention of the higher plane. Observation is still ongoing, but from the UG, it looks as if the game is causing Shibuya to face crisis once more. I am forbidden from intervening in the UG this time, so I report the situation here by sensing the vibes of the UG and RG. A certain individual intruded on the Shibuya 3 years ago, the executor of the Shinjuku area who ultimately led to its collapse. This angel started a clandestine game with the Shibuya's area composer. He should have been reprimanded as soon as he intruded, but the elites are tolerating this. Probably because most higher plane denizens still oppose Shibuya's non-purification.
So there you go. This also kind of shows that apparently, the angels apparently didn't care for Joshua's decision to spare Shibuya, and I guess Kubo is one of them.
This also seems to imply that Joshua's decision to destroy Shibuya might not have been entirely his own back then. Like, back when, as far as we knew, he was the only composer, we could come to the idea that, yes, this was all completely his decision, but given that apparently it was opposed by the community at large, it does leave me wondering if Joshua may have been a bit pressured to reboot Shibuya.
It's possible, yeah. Alright, continue to.
This time, despite the set of extraordinary circumstances, the game is miraculously balanced, resembling the situation in said previous crisis, Shibuya's non-purification. This time the circumstances are as follows. 1. Split opinions on the subject of Shibuya's collapse. 2. The absence of an actively involved composer. 3. Each side selecting a proxy. And 4. Competent intervention by the executor.
One thing that I would like to mention, by the way, notice what Teo read earlier. Apparently, this is a game, clandestine game between Joshua, as in the Shibuya area's composer, and Kubo. So this was all a big game between Kubo and Joshua. So
that means Joshua was once again behind the scenes the entire time. Hence his witnessing of the final round of the game.
Carry on, Teo.
Neither the executor, who wishes for collapse and thus purification, nor the composer, who has avoided this up until now, can directly exert their powers in the UG. Therefore,
there you go, Jova. See?
Therefore, they must have a proxy in the game. The executor's proxy is the current conductor and a reaper originally from Shinjuku, Shiba Miyakaze. The composer's proxy is a player in the Reaper's game, one Rindo Kanade.
So there you go. Rendo was Joshua's proxy.
Although assuming this was between Joshua and Kubo, that means Kubo eventually cheated since Has had the jurisdiction to wipe him out when he was really getting full of that nonsense near the end of the game.
I will henceforth refer to Shiba Miyakaze as the conductor and Rindo Kanade as the proxy. Perhaps spurred by the appearance of a proxy, former Reaper Sho Minamoto has resumed activity after a period of silence. Furthermore, I'm picking up familiar vibes emitting from Shinjuku, which underwent collapse and entered the purification phase. They are still faint, but I will keep a close eye on them. Alright, next one. The Reaper's game, in which the proxy participates, is currently being played without the composer. Of the numerous ways in which the game is affected, the most significant is the supposed termination of the game's rules by the conductor. One such rule in the current game is the team system, adopted from Shinjuku's rules by the conductor. Under the team system, whichever team has the most points in the 7-day game may choose to either continue or quit the game. Quitting includes returning to the RG. However, only the composer has the jurisdiction in the UG. The conductor cannot carry out the modulation of others' vibes, used to send players back to the RG. As such, the conductor cannot have a team win the game. He has had to ally himself with a team clearly intent on continuing the Ruin Bringers.
So this is also probably shows why Shiba rigged the game. He knows that he couldn't fulfill players' wish of returning to the RG, so this also explains why he rigged the game so hard.
This also tells us, without telling us technically, that when Kubo was actually taunting Rindo and Fred to actually toss up with their pins, they could have got away if they wanted, and he just basically gaslit them into thinking they were going to die. Cute.
Bluffing.
So basically, when you get down to
they could have quit at any moment, yes.
Yes.
However, that being said, if they had quit, then Shibuya would have been pretty... Well, actually, no, Shibuya wouldn't have been screwed, because if Rindo never played the game, then the bird creature wouldn't be nearly as powerful as it was.
However,
yeah, but remember, Rindo's bird thing, that was his backup plan, as he said.
The primary thing
Shiba was plan... Yeah, Shiba was plan A, whereas Rindo was plan B. Go on to.
True, yeah.
In a team system, each team's relative value is important, and one can logically measure their scores against the others. A loss for the team is a loss for each individual within it. It is unclear how long ago these rules were first implemented in Shinjuku, but what is clear is that they seem specifically designed to erase players, counter to the objective of Reaper's game. Alright, next one. A new player has joined the Proxy's team. The composer and myself, the producer, not intervening, puts Shibuya at a disadvantage, but this new exceptionally capable recruit, alongside the presence of Minamoto, is reassuring for the team of two. Nagi Uzui is at once open-minded and closed off, with internal and external emotional makeups that are, interestingly, perfect foils to Tosai Furuzawa's. A healthy variety of personalities and abilities should benefit their team.
Oh god, even he ships it.
I would like to remind you, Jova, that in the first game this guy was about to give his dick measurement to a bunch of teams.
That is true. Hanakama is very weird at times.
Okay. To be fair, he said personal measurements. He could be mentioning his height. He couldn't...
That's not usually what people in Japan say when they talk about giving their measurements.
The Proxy has started using his ability in earnest. I can scarcely believe a natural could have this power. Naturals are capable people with extraordinary individual abilities, awakened by making contact with tuning vibes. These tuning vibes, which resonate with an individual's soul, are technology developed originally in the higher plane as an application of the vibe modulation required to travel between planes. It is highly unusual for multiple naturals to appear in succession in the UG, but I suspect the pins distributed through the RG have been imbued with tuning vibes in advance. The awakenings from the pins distribution encourage selection. However, the Proxy's ability, Replay, is a significant deviation from other naturals' abilities.
So this explains why everybody has a super awesome ability. There you go.
Replay's power is so dangerous for both the UG and the RG that if I could intervene in the game, I would have stopped this ability's manifestation. It has the potential to tear apart the lower planes code makeup via distortions. The composer predicted his ability and chose his proxy because of it.
Possibly.
I wonder if Hanakoma ever gets frustrated not being able to intervene. Like, he seems chill, but these notes seem to imply that he's secretly extremely frustrated with everything.
Well, Joba, not interfering is literally the #1 rule of his job. So.
Oh, of course, but usually, I presume, with regular games, the fate of the city is not at stake, so I can get why he feels frustrated in these specific states. Also, I will say, I find it weird that he is still the one giving the reports, but they didn't make a new sprite for him to show up at any point in the story, when even Joshua got one and he shows up at like the tail end of the game.
It'll become clear, like, there are reasons why he couldn't be involved in this. But anyway, for the sake of the newcomers who may not play the first game, Mr. H, talk us about what the Reaper's game is.
So number 4. So what exactly is the purpose of a Reaper's game? Let us review. The explicit goal of a game is to locate exceptional humans. Players of outstanding imagination are elevated to higher planes and made into Reapers or Angels to aid in the oversight of their area. The UG is a higher plane compared to the RG. It is understood to be the afterlife, as the death of a body in the RG triggers a vibe modulation that relocates the soul to the UG. However, the proxy and his fellows were brought to the UG without the vibe modulation triggered by death. They have already begun to suspect that something is amiss. Eventually, they will notice how different we are from the Ruinbringers too. The Reapers should be fighting for their lives the same as the players, but Shibuya's internal Reaper hierarchy is at total standstill. The game 3 years ago, the game carried out by Shibuya's composer and then conductor to determine whether Shibuya will be purified, or in other words, whether the UG and RG will be erased, is now known as Shibuya's non-purification, but the hierarchical freeze presumably stems from oppositions to the non-purification.
So from what I can surmise, at the very least, I do appreciate the specification that not just anybody gets into the Reaper's game, but you have to be very special and creative, in a sense, to be part of the Reaper's game. Otherwise, I was kind of left to wonder, so does literally everyone who dies get a chance of rebirth? But nah, I guess this also would explain why you wouldn't get into the Reaper's game if, say, you died of something like, say, old age or whatnot, as far as I can tell. But also, I am starting to wonder if, while Kubo was technically out of line, most of Heaven or the hierarchy didn't see it as that way when he was trying to destroy Shibuya, since they were probably like, well, he's out of line, but he's right. Let him destroy the place. It was meant to be rebooted anyway.
Might be connected to the meta aspect that I mentioned, but we're not done on that point yet. Anyway, I detected new vibes in the UG at the end of today's game. It seems just like the proxy and his fellow K's, who was forcibly vibe modulated to the UG by the ping's abilities manifestation. This time, these vibes are from someone the composer and I know quite well.
Beat, yeah.
Next one.
Not Bowser's vibe scepter.
A turf war over the demarcated areas of Shibuya called the Scrambled Land has just taken place. The Ruinbringers declined to participate. If the Ruinbringers had participated, they surely would have won, leading to a decrease in overall morale. I suspect this desperate struggle, which pits teams against each other in place of noise opponents, exists purely for the entertainment of the conductor. It's been 104 weeks since the current conductor began conducting the game. The Deep River Society, the Barrier Beauties, and the Pure Hearts have all continued for at least 30 weeks, and the teams are already showing signs of giving up. Presumably, they sense the impossibility of victory against the Ruinbringers. Perceiving that they are playing an unwinnable game has marked negative effects on a player's well-being.
Well, no shit.
The Proxy's team...
Wow, what a shocker.
The Proxy's team may be able to avoid being last ranked, but knocking down the Ruinbringers to reach the top seems arduous. Although, one never knows what can happen in this game. I observe the situation. Inamoto has become aware of the Proxy's ability, and seems to be plotting something.
When is he not?
When is he not? Yeah.
Next one. The proxy's soul has manifested change. Rather than improving, the strength of its stagnation is increased. I also think the dynamics of his vibes have narrowed. I believe this may be due in part to his tendency to misperceive the opinions and values of others to be his own.
Hence the Motoi thing. Yeah.
If he does this entirely unconsciously, it may be difficult for him to realize it is happening. Shibuya's previous game required an entry fee upon arrival, through which the composer offered a chance to re-examine oneself, but this isn't the case in this game. The Shinjuku rules do not encourage personal growth or change, purely judging one's worth on the game's outcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say, Joshua runs a much better game than Az does.
How bad do you have to be when Joshua, even before his character development, arguably ran a more fair game?
And more useful game, basically.
Okay, I guess to be fair, on the one hand, it's nice that you don't have to give up that which is most precious with you to enter the game.
Yeah, I'd rather not have the Shoka being taken as a damsel in distress in this, thank you.
What if someone was really vain and that the most precious thing to them was literally their body, and they go in the game and they're just an invisible person?
Probably will happen. That would be a reverse. More like a reverse Shiki. Shiki's primary thing was envy, so she was given Aries' body specifically, so she could, but it only serves as a reminder of how this is not who she is, basically. So this would be.
My point was that the guy would have no body.
Oh, well, then
He's
he would be a little no. Well, he could be a nobody from Kingdom Hearts. That works.
Yes,
go on.
I will. What I do want to get is, like, as easy as it would be to write off the Shinjuku one as the less fair one, I feel like both have their positives and their negatives. The Shibuya one just feel like it's a better test of your character and how you can change. However, it does sound in some ways to be more arduous, whereas the Shinjuku one does seem more dickish on the surface, but on the other hand, one could argue it was less mentally taxing compared to the Shibuya one. I can't say this for entire certain since we never truly got to see a Shinjuku game in full, unless, Shiba's game was supposed to be that, but I always got the inkling it was a mix of Shinjuku and Shibuya's rules since they were over in Shibuya.
It all stems down to the fact that between these two, video games, we have not seen a game in its natural state, quote unquote. So we don't have too much of a field of reference. Anyway, the faint stagnation in the proxy's souls makes him a good fit for his natural ability. The higher levels of imagination he is able to maintain, the increased accuracy of each replay, for better or for worse. The pieces seem to fit together almost too perfectly, but that might be just my imagination.
Don't worry, hey, Mr. H, I'm sure it's nothing.
It's absolutely not part of Kubo's plan as well.
Number 7.
Nah.
The Deep River Society has been erased in accordance with the rules of the game. The souls of all members, including the leader, are confirmed to have vanished. The erasure of the entire team is unsurprising, considering the conductor's intentions. However, this is far from the goal of judging abilities. Upon understanding the significance of erasure, the vibes of the proxy souls have weakened once again. His rigid emotional state may be cause for concern.
Hey guys, turns out putting a kid in a death game makes him feel sad and bad about things.
No, it builds character, obviously.
Wait a minute.
Well, you say that, but technically it did end up that way.
Also,
we're not justifying this.
Meanwhile, Junko Inoshima has issued a cease and desist from Hell saying that they stole her idea.
She can do whatever the fuck she wants, I don't care.
She went to Super Hell, actually.
Also, this also, reminds me of something that I don't think we mentioned. I'm actually kind of glad in a way to the fact that the actual death of the other teams actually stuck instead of doing what the previous game did and resurrect everybody, and say that it's epic good fun. It's a kind of a good balance that they had, if you ask me.
If I recall correctly, in the original game, a lot of the characters we did meet did stay dead, like Triple X or or those tanned duo, they both stayed dead. I think the only one who was really brought back was
No.
Rhyme.
No, actually, no, Jova. I can review that. Even the anime showcases how both of them. Basically in the anime, Jova, there's a post credits. Well, not during credits, I should say, thing where Neku meets them in the RG. So,
well, that's the anime, though. Like, I mean, in the game, we never see them again, save for another day.
Didn't Square make the anime themselves, or?
They did, but it is important to remember, Shiroi, that neither Nomura nor Kondo were involved in the making of the anime.
Well, it was
Also
done by
right, so
Shinei.
it could still mean that it's not accurate.
Well, it was done
I
by
mean, it already
Shinei
isn't,
Animation.
but you know what I mean.
Like, my
Sorry,
take has been
go on.
that the anime is a different universe since it already changes stuff anyway.
Yeah. Yes, Whips?
Yak's animation was done by Shinei.
Ah, okay.
Anyway,
Well, I don't think Square is an animation studio, so they would have to outsource it to begin with anyway. Go on to.
as suspected, the individual who arrived in the proxy's moment of crisis was the source of the vibes I detected a few days ago, and I know him well. It does not appear as if the composer had a hand in his sudden appearance. In sharp contrast to the prominently active executor, the composer is seemingly biding his time. Although I am forbidden to make contact to confirm, I don't believe the reappearance of this particular individual is negative for Shibuya. Yamamoto, on the other hand, has disappeared from the proxy side. Yamamoto, who in addition to his innate abilities, has had his imagination transformed to drastically heightened level by his resurrection via taboo refinery sigil, can seemingly perceive the proxy's abilities.
So yeah,
We brought him back stronger, harder,
Yeah,
better,
Co-
faster.
We have the technology.
She literally rebuilt him because she had the magic to do it.
We have created the $6 million mathematician.
I have
You see, you keep saying that Coco is one of your favorites, Shiroi, but she did. But it's her fault. We still have show going around in here.
maybe this
So-
Yes, believe him.
Maybe this entire game is just a complicated way for telling me and Shiri to get over each other's ideals. I have an idea on what he's planning. It's dangerous, but I have no way of stopping him. Incidentally, the Taboo Refinery Sigil is a reproduction copied and transcribed from its original by a certain Reaper, and its completeness, or lack thereof, may be a factor in the subtle change in Minamoto's fundamental vibes. Next one. 4 teams remain: the Ruinbringers, the Pure Hearts, the Very Beauties, and the Wicked Twisters. Only one team may be the last team, which is to say, become the winner. The long continuing game approaches its conclusion.
He had no idea.
According to Shinjuku's rules, participating in the game requires one to exceed the total average imagination of the current players. As the game continues and the last ranked are erased, the average rises, making requirements for participation stricter. With the fresh entrance of the Wicked Twisters, Band of Naturals, and the erasure of the Deep River Society, the line of entry has dramatically jumped. At this point, it seems almost no new players will appear. For the remaining period, the game will most likely continue with no more than the current set. The game should conclude in the next week at longest, but the conductor has yet to contact the composer. It is possible he is unaware of the higher plane's purification protocol details. If the conductor himself is the victor, I wonder whether the game will end as envisioned. Next one. As if filling the hole left by Minamoto, the owner of those familiar vibes has joined the team. Daisuke Nojo Bito, also known as Beat. He was a player in Shibuya's non-purification game 3 years ago. His drive and courage were recognized even then, as were his solid imagination. He should be a reassuring ally to the proxy. And yet...
Yeah, it becomes the reliable senpai. Go on.
And yet, stagnation remains in the proxy's soul. No, I should call it a new quiescence. I faintly felt the same kind of change 8 days ago when Minamoto joined the team. If this is the reason for the immaturity of a proxy's soul, then unlike with Neku Sakuraba during Shibuya's non-purification, this reason would be difficult to bring to light. The proxy used replay again today. The upward trend in planar distortions added after each use indicates that at this rate, an explosive increase is likely after only a few more uses. However, the pin is effectively absorbing the distortions. The UG and the planes below it are not being affected by replay so far. So basically this tells us that by week 2, the things were fucked up already.
You know, I just find it funny that, Shibuya not getting wiped out was treated almost like a tragedy with the name and how they refer to anyone involved with it. Like,
well, again, if it's not part of the cosmic plan, everything, yeah, they will kind of basically put it on a blacklist.
So it was definitely most unorthodox.
Anyway, next one. All of the Reapers affiliated with the Shibuya area, including the conductor, would ordinarily be referred to as Shibuya Reapers. But the conflict during their initial arrival in Shibuya has caused those Reapers from Shinjuku to still be called Shinjuku Reapers. After Shinjuku's inversion 3 years ago started its purification, the Shinjuku Reapers migrated to Shibuya. An inversion happens when the boundary between the UG and the RG is destroyed, forcing a purification to begin. It occurs, albeit incredibly rarely, when the composer and the conductor fail to agree on the purification. The composer's permission is not required for a Reaper to continue working in a new area. Such transfers are determined by the conductor's jurisdiction. In this case, Shibuya's temporary conductor at the time authorized the continuation of Shinjuku's Reaper's work. I detect no vibes from Shinjuku's conductor at present. I assume they were erased along with Shinjuku's collapse. Once a purification has begun, it is standard from the conductor to be invited up to a higher plane. There are almost no reports of the erasure of a conductor and a mass transfer of Reapers to other areas, but almost doesn't mean none. Upon reviewing the records, I managed to find 4 cases where the situation had fallen into imbalance before its purifications. One of those is Shibuya's non-purification from 3 years ago. Shinjuku's composer should file a report on the proceedings of Shinjuku's purification at some point. However, I doubt the composer was aware of the details or will report them thoroughly, considering his disinterest in the lower planes. With Shibuya's composer giving his tacit approval to the Shinjuku Reapers, Shibuya's Reapers have no choice but to follow the rules given to them. Regardless of the true circumstances, Shiba Miyakaze occupies his current position through legal means, as he was judged to be fit for the role by those around him.
So this means that in spite of Azuki believing that she was the one left in charge, Joshua was still technically the one in charge, even behind the scenes.
Also, interesting to know, there have been 3 other cases where something similar to what the first game happened. I wonder.
At least Josh let her have her fun.
Anyway,
yes, he did.
next one. The team leaders feel restless. The proxy psychological state isn't doing well. I hope it will last until the last day of the week. The base rhythm of the team's mutual understanding grows poorly. In a team system, any disturbances in these measurements could have a major effect on the outcome. An online network called the RNS is being developed for the Reaper's game. The tool measures each individual's vibes and imagination in an easily understood way and is used to manage both players and Reapers. However, making this information viewable also makes it accessible from the RG. It can only be found by those who know of the UG's existence and are sufficiently proficient with online networks, though wherever there are issues with communication between planes without vibe modulation is yet unclear.
There you go, Teo. This report confirms that those who know of the UG's existence have special perceptions that others don't, which probably explains that question you had last time.
Okay.
Basically.
It's possible that communicating through online networks could inhibit imagination. The imagination expressed in a work of art might have its message weaken when passed through a screen. I'm not currently active as Cat, but when I resume, I must keep in mind that my works will be experienced through a screen, and consider my methods of expressions accordingly.
these new confounding phones and computers and thingamajigs. Back in my day, we put our art on walls and canvas and shit.
This is the age of the emoji, Hanakoma.
Could the developer of the RNS provide me with some insight in that regard?
As in Kae. Yeah.
Next one. There has been a change in the proxy's psychological state. The previously disturbed relations between the members of his team have improved, which is good news. However, there is still a palpable stagnation in the proxy's soul. I have yet to fully analyze the stagnation. I am currently unable to take any action beyond watching attentively. By Shinjuku's regulations, Reapers are limited in the actions they may take. Of course, obstructing players' behavior is not allowed as a basic intervention. The primary enemies that players face are other players on opposing teams. Thus, anyone aiming for the top must go through the Ruinbringers. The Proxy and his fellows are changing their tactics against the exceptionally powerful Ruinbringers. To what extent this approach will be regarded as a deviation from the rules of a Reaper's game remains to be seen. The conductor won't sit idly by if they execute their plan. If the conductor is forced to make a move, things may either end well, very well, or very poorly. As previously stated, Reapers are not allowed to intervene in the game, and yet one of them is currently intervening. It's possible that her Reaper stature will be stripped from her, and seeing where the Reaper will ultimately affiliate will be interesting.
This is when Shoka was secretly helping the Twisters.
Next one. The leader of the Pure Hearts, one Motoi Yanazawa, is in dire predicament due to his own actions. While alive, he seemed to have been remarkably idolized by the proxy on the online network. If Motoi Hanazawa is to face erasure due to being last ranked, it could affect the proxy to an extent. How much is unknown. In online network communication, just as in face-to-face communication, one can encounter both negative and positive intentions. However, the many unseen aspects make a great difference, leaving it easy to cause misperceptions. Motoi Hanazawa's hidden malicious intentions seem to have shocked the proxy.
Gee, you think?
As predicted, Shoka Sakurane has been demoted from Reaper to Ordinary Player. The reason for this is intervention in the game and direct assistance to players. Reapers face very few restrictions on the RNS. They may interact with the RG freely so long as we do not reveal their identities, but according to the terms and conditions I look through, the motion restricts the Reaper account and creates a separate player account.
Literally like a video game.
Unless she chooses to reveal her identity on her player account, she is no longer able to interact with the proxy as his online network friend. She has aided the proxy via messaging up to now, but with that approach no longer available to her, I wonder what her next course of action will be.
I love how Mr. H refers to it as online network, truly feeling the point of an old man who came before the time.
New computers thingies.
Yeah.
Next one. The conductor has made his intentions known to the players. Although it would be impossible for him to raise Shibuya like Shinjuku merely by the conductor's capacity, it seems he believes himself to be the executor, a higher plane entity that facilitates purifying the
Yeah,
city.
remember? Yeah, you might remember when we first defeated Shiba and he disappeared, and he says, "Oh, but why? I'm the executor." Now, why does he think he's the executor? We're about to find out. Carry on, too.
The last rank Pure Hearts have been confirmed erased. This was expected beforehand. Only 2 teams remain, other than the Ruinbringers.
Of course.
With the Ruinbringers' 2 identity revealed, it is likely that the rules will change next game. The framework for conflict has changed from player versus player to player versus Reaper. I have detected extraordinary vibes from a certain stuffed animal. I pondered why the stuffed animal showed up. As it turns out, it is temporarily preserving a soul that had lost its code and nearly scattered. Shinjuku's conductor saved his soul imprisoned within, paying the price with his own erasure. Angel-level power is required to free it, but there is still no sign of a composer, and I am strictly forbidden from intervening in this game. The Executor will not be willing to help, considering he appears to have imprisoned it there himself.
Yeah, basically, the original Shinjuku conductor was erased.
Probably by Kubo.
So, interestingly enough, Shiba wasn't even the original conductor
No.
there.
Well, remember, towards the end of the third week, it was revealed by Shoka that the Shinjuku Reaper staged a revolution against the original conductor,
Seized the means of
La- la-
production and all,
led by Shiba. So,
The soul would be left in prison for some time, but if we were to locate someone with the means to release it, it would be the capable person who played the game 3 years ago, the original creator of the stuffed animal, who returned to the RG after the game ended. However, she is currently absent from Shibuya. Next one. The rules have changed significantly. Defeated opponents may be erased. This applies equally to players and Reapers, as well as the Conductor. At the same time the rules changed, the Conductor made an unforeseen move against Shibuya. An inversion was launched. It's a terrible game. The noise produced by the Conductor have destabilized the code making up the Shibuya area. Particularly, the boundary between the lower planes, the UG and the RG, is remarkably fragile. The code is the law that binds together the souls that make up all of existence. To understand more easily, think of it as the bolts and screws in buildings. Now, Shibuya's bolts are destabilized or have been removed altogether, like a wooden block with nothing fixating it together. In other words, it's on the brink of collapse. The boundary between the RG and the UG deteriorates rapidly due to the proliferating noise. When the boundary is lost, the air will be torn apart and purification will begin.
So yeah, that was Kubo's primary idea, to give Shiba
Spam.
these plague noise to destroy the boundary between RG and UG.
Some in the higher plane believe normal purification, which maintains the planar framework, to be pointless. However, it is tacitly understood that inversions are generally not utilized due to the complete loss of character the air undergoes, as its frameworks is created anew rather than preserved through disassembly and reassembly. And yet the composer maintains his silence as Shibuya is on the verge of crisis from inversion as Shinjuku before it.
Yeah, I see no reason why I should do something. I'll just stay here and relax.
Never mind the people who died along the way.
Don't worry. Don't worry. If it comes to that, I'll intervene, but only if it's strictly necessary. I'm sure my proxy will handle things.
While Shibuya's situation has undergone radical changes, the proxy's psychological state is less disturbed than expected. This could be interpreted as positive personal growth. Perhaps he has developed his understanding of the situation, as well as sorted out what actions to take. Shoka Sakurane has joined the proxy's team. Her competencies are outstanding. She should make a fine addition. Next one. One Shinjuku Reaper has been confirmed erased. I wonder whether the Conductor saw this coming. Angels emits vibes strong enough to, when exposed up close, disturb the thinking of lower plane beings. Reportedly, many Shinjuku Reapers have sensed a change in Shiba Miyakaze's personality over time.
Aha! So what angel do we know has been, talking to Shiba a lot throughout these past 3 years?
One day, after the Executor leaves and the Conductor returns to his senses, I wonder how he will feel.
So there you go. The reason Shiba changed so drastically, as it's told to us by his Reapers, who don't understand why he changed so much, was because of the vibes that Kubo emits that, like Mr. H says, causes them to completely change their thinking, basically.
Kind of makes you wonder why Kubo didn't infect everyone with his vibes just to keep,
As
them
demonstrated
from
by the
getting
game,
any
he
ideas.
felt that his plan was just foolproof, so...
Yeah,
Yep.
Kubo really did see himself as the hot stuff.
Again, keep that in mind. Anyway, the proxy's ability has now been used 8 times. His pin, which absorbs planar distortions, changes design with each use, but at present there are no adverse effects on the surroundings. I am concerned about the design changing only on the proxy's pin. It likely indicates a structural difference from other pins.
So basically, this pin is not like the others. So.
Perhaps replay isn't a natural ability at all. To start with, it is too powerful as an individual ability. It would make more sense as an ability the pin bestowed upon the proxy. The player pins were almost certainly made by the executor. An angel would be able to prepare special pins. It is unclear when and how the proxy acquired the special pin. Logically, it must have been on the day he arrived in the UG. Certainly several factors that could have influenced the proxy's fate were in play that day. In any case, to give him such a pin knowing he is the composer's proxy is both incredibly brave and incredibly insolent. Fucking disgrace.
So basically, Kubo, you done goofed.
Honestly, Kubo's the kind of guy who, again, is so confident that he thinks acting as crazy as can be won't land him in trouble, when in reality that just left hole after hole in his operation.
Anyway,
Alright, this is one of my favorite parts. Go on, Tim.
next one. The very beauties have been confirmed erased. Canon Tachibana, who provided vital emotional support, has been lost, leaving the proxy and his fellows in turmoil. Tosai Furusawa's soul has had the most prominent change. He had fundamentally evasive thinking and an unwillingness to show his true feeling. One's experience leads one to hold a certain belief. It is difficult to free oneself from that mindset. The process accompanied by great anguish. I wonder just how much of his anguish he will be able to emotionally recover from. The answer will depend on his connections with the proxy and his teammates.
Once again, it wouldn't be a Kingdom team game if the theme of the importance of connections with other people wouldn't be a factor, of course.
Only in this case you have to rename every instances of war pain with hurt for some reason.
Hurt's not a noun, damn it.
Yeah, fun fact, the whole hurt thing from that's actually a mistranslation. There's a video about it, but that's another time. Not the time.
Still, there is no time for discussing things at their own pace.
Exactly.
Proxy's team is the only one left. The conductor is fixated on disturbing the proxy and his fellows' emotional state. He seems more concerned with his enemies than the war itself. His next attempt to draw a reaction will likely involve someone who might join forces with the proxy.
I wonder who that could be.
With the conductor's plans laid bare, I wonder which side every Reaper, particularly the original Shibuya Reapers, will choose. Some who know my true identity occasionally try to contact me, but I cannot respond. Perhaps the Shibuya Reapers need to grow up once more. So, who was trying to contact Mr. H?
We don't know. It's
Ryan?
it's kept ambiguous. It's possible.
That's weird. I guess they were planning to maybe draw up on that in the sequel, but it feels weird for behind-the-scenes stuff, which, again, mind you, Hanakoma never even gets to show up visually in the game, so why keep that thing vague?
Anyway, my cafe on Cat Street, the one that serves as my base of operations 3 years ago, is always open to them. It seems some have already dropped by, and at last the faint vibes confined by to Shinjuku have regained their full former strength. It won't be long before we meet another person who owes Shibuya's fate. Next one. Neku Sakuraba has returned to Shibuya. As I suspected, the presence I picked up 17 days ago in the Shinjuku area were his. Being the last team standing against the Ruinbringers and Reapers has provided the Wicked Twisters with a sense of unity, but Daisuke no Jubito appeared to believe it was his sole responsibility to carry the team.
Yeah, I would remember that was the entire day involving that culminated with Neku showing up. It started with Beat being super concerned over Kanon's death. Okay, I need to step up. I'm the oldest one. I'm the veteran. I need to step up and help them, which is why he tried to save them from Minamimoto by sacrificing himself.
Anyway, I can't say he was unconditionally wrong in his actions towards Minamimoto. However, he would have been erased by Minamimoto had Neku Sakuraba not arrived. Avoiding this crisis is remarkably significant. Let's hope the team can gain momentum. Minamimoto's focus was on the planar distortions when he turned half noise and went berserk. The distortions may not be clearly calculable from the UG plane, but that he can recognize their existence at all is an impressive feat. I suspect he experienced the distortions he fused with himself. In the first place, these distortions are undetectable from the lower plane known as DOG. And Minamoto seems to have come to the same conclusion I have. Replay is not a force that can be handled by a human from the lower planes after all. I have a better idea of what plan the Executor envisions. There is one more thing that concerns me, the proxy's soul. Its stagnation has strengthened its momentum again, when it had seemed to be fading away. It may be the proxy's fear of Minamoto's hostility, or uncertainty surrounding his communication with Neko. I wonder about the cause for his stagnation. Next one. Neko Sakuraba is joining forces with the proxy. Deeming that he didn't need him anymore, the composer has sent him to Shinjuku during his purification and kept him away from Shibuya. It seems the real motivation was to hide him in the deserted Shinjuku because he would be targeted for his powerful abilities, and then leave the situation to his judgment and actions. Meanwhile, the stagnation in the proxy's soul is not fading away. The factors hindering its growth remain unidentified. If only I could talk with him.
This also showcases. This was also implied in the first game's reports, but yeah, like this is something that Mr. H apparently really likes to do, to talk to certain important players and try to help them with their growth. Basically.
I like to imagine Hanakoma definitely developed a deep respect for Neku, especially.
Oh, sure.
So Joshua literally just said you're grounded until further notice.
For free,
Jesus
for free.
Christ.
Shiki was left like waiting and wondering for 3 years.
I'm sorry, Shiki, but I'm gonna have to ground your boyfriend. Is that cool?
I want him to myself for
No.
at least 3 years. I get custody.
I get him on weekends.
So what was this? This whole game was a bloody court hearing custody. That was this Mega Man X7.
Yes.
Sure, why not? Go on, too.
After repeated demands, I have finally obtained a report on the Shinjuku's area's purification. On the surface, the Shinjuku game 3 years ago involved a conflict between the Conductor and the Reapers.
Exactly.
But in actuality, the composer was eager to purify Shinjuku and planted the Executor amongst the Reapers to frame the Conductor opposed to purification. This explains why the Conductor was erased and the Reapers transferred to a new area. Tsugumi Matsune has inferred to the Executor's presence, so he sealed her soul. She was the younger sister of Shinjuku's Conductor and formerly a Reaper, though the Executor removed her Reaper status after she allied herself with the Conductor.
This explains why the Shinjuku Conductor sacrificed himself to save Tsugumi.
A Shinjuku Reaper losing their status means erasure. Recognizing defeat, Shinjuku's Conductor mustered the strength in those last moments to preserve the sister's soul in a stuffed animal. That stuffed animal is a plush toy belonging to one Shiki Misaki. A certain Shibuya Reaper was involved in this matter. The Reaper must have taken the stuffed animal to Shinjuku. As a result, Tsugumi Matsune, who withstood Shinjuku's purification, became the RG's lone survivor. But afterward, the Executor sealed her in the stuffed animal, turned her into a Reaper once more, and monitored her closely.
Oh god, so it's like, nope, sorry, you can't quit yet.
Also remember the whole scheme walking thing. She acted through no will of her own, as her soul was imprisoned by noise. However, the natural ability, Trailer, was still usable, and her messages seemed to reach the proxy. The noise imprisoning her has already faded away. If the damage to the stuffed animal is fixed, she will be free.
It's like in the first
that the aim of his abilities, trailer, replay, and so on, it's something that the webcomic Shag and Scoop actually uses for JoJo like stands.
Oh my god, that's right.
If you actually have read that, this shit is insane.
Remember, it's a callback because remember the A New Day content from Final Remix of the first game was also localized by Matt Ferd and his team. So it's a follow up on his teasers joke with Mr. H when he was talking to Joshua.
Anyway, next one. The Shibuya River is known to be an extraordinary place, even to the higher plane. Its source is in the Shinjuku area, meaning it should have been erased in the purification. And yet the river, a peculiar plane, continues to flow in its own unobservable place without change. What an excellent idea to hide souls there to spare them from purification.
Referring to Suzukichi.
Speaking of, Kaiichi Suzuki loved the game the most out of the Shinjuku Reapers, and deeply respected his friends. His actions reveal his distress. Most of the Shinjuku Reapers maintained the close bonds they shared back in the Shinjuku area. I know not what kind of person Shiba Miyakaze was before meeting the Executor, but judging by the Reaper's devotion to him, he must have been exceptionally charismatic.
It's like Gio
Jesus
said,
Christ.
Kubo's the racist Uncle Grandpa who ruins everything.
He really
in the
is.
Family.
Keep that in mind. It is yet unknown if the Executor will raise Shiba Miyakaze from his influence at the end of Shibuya's game. Even if he is freed, what awaits him upon his return is the brutal reality that he has lost his friends by his own actions.
Yeah, Yano died bad.
Neku Sakuraba is wary of a proxy's ability. The pin limitlessly absorbs the distortions with no sign of the distortions vanishing. They are likely being stored for some objective. I wonder what the composer thinks of all this. There is still no sign of movement from him at all. What are our odds of victory? Tomorrow will tell.
What? Should I do something?
No,
Nah, I
no,
shouldn't.
Pedro, you have to do it the doctoral track way. I'm sorry, have you finished already? I was so bored, I must have dozed off.
In Joshua's case, I think it's more fitting for him to go, should I do something? Nah.
Anyway, next one. The planar distortions caused by replay were all a part of the Executor's plan to purify Shibuya. The condition of the proxy and his comrades took a sudden turn for the worse. The technique of turning distortion energy into noise is remarkably extraordinary, and it is likely that the Executor's natural ability is noise generation or something comparable. The distortions were once people's souls. They manifest from the thoughts and ideas of those from lost timelines that vanished without becoming part of canonical history. Because the pin preserved the distortions as time was turned back, those distortions in the pin were processed as additional thoughts manifested in the vanished timeline, causing them to manifest new distortions. In other words, the distortions birth new distortions, growing, multiplying, and doubling.
Oh my god, they're
It's
multiplying.
literal time cancer.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was the one who came up with that term for it.
Well, we compared it to 13.2's time cancer, even if it's different, same effect. Anyway,
yeah.
the birds the proxy saw are new distortions manifested from preserved distortions, embodied in a code readily storable in the pin. Generally, souls need a catalyst in order to take form. Most likely, when the ability triggered, the Executor's pin also generated noise in advance and transplanted the distortion's distinct imagination into them. The Executor is adept at handling noise. The bird form is temporary, and its form could change again. If it's inconstant and constantly changing, the proxy and his fellows have a tough battle ahead of them. Shibuya is on the verge of crisis. Next one.
When is it not? Jesus.
An unexpected visitor has likely surprised the composer. The visitor is the individual who drew up the report on Shinjuku's inversion. But I wonder why in the world he would come to Shibuya. It doesn't seem the purpose to dispose of the Executor. Disposing of the Executor, one Tanzo Kubo, could have waited until after Shibuya's game ended and purification had taken place. I can only guess why Shinjuku's composer, one Hazuki Mikagi, has erased the noise composed by the Executor and, depending on how one views it, given the proxy another chance. Shibuya's composer must be smiling wearily right now.
Just as planned.
Plan
See?
means Keikaku. The cause of the stagnation in the proxy's soul has been an enigma. Finally, I have seen it. He always feared responsibility. At junctures, whenever Minamoto or friends such as Daisuke no Jobito and Neku Sakuraba appeared, relief manifested stagnation in the proxy's mind. Ironic, but he was the composer of Shinjuku, who famously lacks understanding of the lower planes, that led me to this conclusion. Shibuya definitely collapsed once already. Shibuya now exists because the proxy triggered replay. The choice whether or not to turn back time belongs to the proxy, which is the correct way of thinking about it. Shibuya has withstood collapse, but now stands to face yet another crisis, which must be viewed as a new challenge. Alright, next one. A giant rainbow-colored, bird-shaped noise emerged before the proxy and his fellows, a clear intervention by Shinjuku's composer. The unstable materialization of a Blackbird's noise code had been destroyed and bound together under a new code as a phoenix. It allowed the proxy and his fellows to focus all of their efforts on one target. So that's why the phoenix actually looks like that, because it's the symbol that the composer had on his jacket. It just went on the brand. That makes sense. Each feather on the phoenix tail appears to be the karmic representation of an act of replay. Perhaps this is the shape of the distress of Shinjuku's composer. He has clearly taken an interest in the proxy and his fellows, yet cannot accept the rejection of purification. I believe that there was another reason behind this disposing of the executor, contacting the proxy and intervening with the distortion besides an apology to the Shibuya area. It provided an excuse for Shibuya's non-intervening composer to make a direct move of his own. However, Shibuya's composer remained non-intervening to the very end.
Nope, I'm sticking to the plan.
Not getting off my chair. His reason for showing his face to Neku Sakuraba and the others, as they connected to the people of Shibuya's imagination, was not to lend his power. His reason was to stabilize Neku Sakuraba's emotional state by demonstrating his presence.
So he was literally being there for Neku as a friend. Literally.
Just casually stimulating his serotonin.
Remember, it's like Mr. H says, as a composer, Joshua can see when someone's emotional state is being destroyed by, the unstable code, so he knew that by being there as emotional support, it would help Neku stabilize his code.
Without doing anything. Anyway, a look over the...
I did do hold on, I did do something. I actually did do something this time.
You stood up for like 5 seconds and sat back down again.
That's something.
A look,
No, it isn't.
a look over the vibes recorded by RNS reveals no evidence of any power used. Through their own strength and the strength of the people of Shibuya, the proxy and his fellow defeated the Phoenix.
So basically, we all did it together.
Because we're wicked Twister heroes. Yeah. Anyway, next one, the last one. Now that the Shibuya game's over, I finally have permission to contact the composer. Several days have passed since then. The composer has apparently already completed 2 orders of business. One of them concerns Neku Sakuraba.
Of course.
Using a sample from a parallel world, manifesting from a branching choice, where Neku Sakuraba never went to Shinjuku and instead lived peacefully in the RG for 3 years, the composer modified the surrounding space and memories so that he may once again reside in the RG as a human being without issue. This is not special treatment, as the same is necessary when returning a Reaper to the RG. Oh, okay, that actually explains something that I was actually pondering since the first game, that makes sense, although it kinda is fucked up. They literally pick an alternate universe that serves to just fill in the gaps, and again, it all just begs the question, who's the real you at that point?
While we're at it, while we're at it, let's ship a thesis this. Even if it's somehow exactly the same as it was when they left off, right before being destroyed, is it still truly them?
This is Scientology level of conspiracy theory where they say some shit like every time you go to dream, you jump into another dimension when you wake up. Anyway, the other order of business concerns Shoka Sakurane. With her Shinjuku Reaper status lost, her erasure at the end of the game was decided. However, the composer saved her soul as he dispersed a moment before erasure. She has been confirmed reincarnated in the Shibuya area. I believe this is a rare, honest expression of gratitude for the composer. Gratitude toward the proxy, that is.
You see, Rindo... hey, Blips, feel free to respond. You see, Rindo, for being such a good proxy and winning the game for me, I'll give you your girlfriend back and not let her die. You're welcome.
But
I could bring back everyone else who died.
I mean,
but
I was gonna say, why don't you
just
bring
you.
anyone else back? They didn't deserve it either. Well, except
I mean,
for-
let's face it, Rendell. Do you really want me to bring back Moto into the RG?
Also
You
because
don't
this
have
is
to.
Like, I don't
you
like
have
those
to bring-
people.
you don't have to bring him back. Just bring back everyone that I liked, or if I didn't know him personally, people who didn't deserve it.
Also because this is the Kingdom team, so having woman as a final trophy is a proud tradition at this point. Anyway, the proxy has also returned safely to his peaceful life in the RG. Through him, I have learned much about the simulated plane of online networks' influence on human emotion. There is no denying its use as a tool to expand one's world. However, unless the user sees that expanded world with their own eyes and actually experiences it, it remains a mere simulation. Enjoy.
So yeah, wow. Mr. H has literally become an old man yelling at the clouds. You see, this whole thing about talking to others on the internet, that's not real communication. Go outside and talk to people face to face, like we did back in the day.
Yeah. Tell me that when you actually show up, Gramps.
Enjoy the moment and keep moving forward. Maybe the messages that the composer meant to convey to Shibuya by refusing to intervene in the game this time. I have one final note to the proxy, to Indocanade. The decision you made took courage, and I thank you for it. I sincerely hope we can meet somewhere someday. Don't know when, don't know where.
Where? Yeah.
This kind of implies that he left the notes for Rindo to find.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some annotated sheet music reported here, but I don't know what that is, so I'll just leave it at that.
No. That's something else. Don't worry. We're done.
All right.
So there you go, everybody. Those are the Neo reports. So you can read them for yourself on the if you want, go ahead and check the Twelly Wiki to see the vanilla translation. I will argue the vanilla translation still gets the basic gist of things across, not as well as these, of course, for reasons we already explained. But oh well, we already went through why this is the case. All right, everybody, that's it. We hope you enjoyed it. And now, next time, it's time for us to relax and go into a different plane and have some fun.
All right.
See you then.
And another day.
Yes.
See
See you,
ya.
everybody.